Last month, I took a weekend shift at the hospital where I had just started working. I was excited but nervous. I wanted to prove myself, especially since I had student loans to pay off. The hospital was an old building, mid-century style, with long, dreary corridors. The lights flickered overhead as I walked. The walls had faded health posters that felt more creepy than comforting. I was assigned to the pediatrics ward. On my first night, I was caring for the children when I heard soft voices. I thought they were just echoes of the staff talking. Then I started hearing my name. It was a whisper, and I was alone. I shook it off, convincing myself it was my imagination. I was tired. I was stressed. As the week went on, the whispers got louder. They called my name, clearer now. I looked around the empty ward, feeling uneasy. Sometimes the patient's conditions worsened after hearing the whispers. I thought I was just imagining things, but I felt a pull to them. I needed to understand what was happening. I started digging into the hospital's history. I found out about a previous nurse who worked in pediatrics. The stories were disturbing. Children had died under her care, and I felt a chill thinking about it. I couldn't shake the feeling that the whispers were tied to that nurse. Or maybe to the kids I was looking after. One night, I was in the hall when I felt something brush past me. I turned quickly, but no one was there. My heart raced, and I ran a hand through my hair, trying to calm down. I felt like I was losing my mind. The patients looked peaceful in sleep, but dread washed over me. Then, the voice called my name again, clearer than before. I took a deep breath and moved toward the sound. It seemed to come from an old linen closet at the end of the hall. I hesitated, feeling cold hair around me. The whispers stopped. I reached for the handle, knowing I should turn back, but my hand wouldn't listen. Suddenly, I heard a soft thud behind me. I spun around. A shadow darted away. My heart was pounding. I felt a voice deep inside me telling me to run, but I stood frozen for a moment. Then I took a step forward, heart racing. I grabbed the handle of the closet again. This time I pulled it open. The room inside was dark and empty. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. I felt a chill run down my spine. Now, a month later, I still think about that night. I don't know what I heard or what it wanted from me. I still hear the whispers sometimes, calling my name. I wonder if I should have listened. I wonder if I ever will understand. The following month crept in slowly, like the fading daylight outside the hospital. I still worked weekend shifts, trying to keep my mind occupied. But every shift was a reminder of that moment at the closet. I kept catching myself glancing over my shoulder, half expecting to see someone lurking there. The whispers had changed. They were less frequent now, but when they came, they were sharper, more urgent. One night, while taking inventory in the storage room, I heard my name again. It flowed through the air like a cool breeze, soft yet insistently pleading. My stomach twisted as I looked around, hoping to see something, anything that would explain it. I decided to confide in Anna, one of the more experienced nurses. She seemed to sense my unease. I told her about the whispers, the shadow, the chilling connection to the previous nurse. She frowned, her eyes narrowing. "You should talk to the chief nurse about this," she said quietly. "Things like that, they can linger. You're not the first to feel it." Her words struck me as odd. I had thought I was alone in this. "Other nurses have heard it too?" I asked, feeling a rush of indignation mixed with curiosity. Anna nodded, looking down the corridor as if something might be watching. "It's not just the whispers. Sometimes the kids, they have episodes, terrifying fits after something unexpected happens. It's only a few of them, but it's enough to cause concern. Just keep away from the linen closet. No one goes there anymore." The unease grew heavier within me. I hadn't intended to dig deeper, but I needed to know more. What had happened in that closet? Why was no one willing to talk about it? That night, I roamed the hospital, looking for answers. I examined old records in the break room, searching for notes about the previous nurse and the children she cared for. I found scraps of information that painted a grim picture. Multiple reports of incidents surrounding her shifts. The children had been restless, often crying, sometimes screaming. But one name stood out among the rest: Emily. I learned that Emily had been one of the most affected. She had died in the hospital under unclear circumstances, her records marked with mystery. As I read, the room started to feel colder. I could almost hear the whispers lingering, trying to wrap around me. I fought the rising tide of panic and pushed through. Then I stumbled onto a file I wasn't supposed to see. It was a complaint about that nurse. My heart raced as I flipped through the pages filled with disturbing details. Some children had claimed to see a figure watching them. Each account made me shudder. Then, suddenly, the lights flickered above me. I jumped, the file slipping from my trembling fingers. Shadows danced along the walls, and I felt the undeniable weight of someone watching me. My breath quickened. That's when I heard it again, clearer this time. My name was not just a whisper. It was a mounted accusation. "Help us!" I felt ice in my veins. Who was this voice? What did they want from me? That's when I saw it, a flicker of movement down the hall. I leaned forward, sensing that maybe, just maybe, the answer was close enough to grasp. But as I stepped toward the shadows, everything went dark. The darkness engulfed me, swallowing the faint sounds of the hospital. My heart pounded. I reached out, my hand grazing the cool wall beside me. Fear flared up, urging me to retreat, but my curiosity held me in place. I squinted, trying to discern shapes in the gloom. Just as quickly as the light had gone out, it flickered back to life. But the hallway felt different. The air was thick, electric. The whispers were louder now, surrounding me, merging into a desperate chorus. "Help us!" they cried, tinged with sorrow and fear. With my pulse racing, I turned my head, searching for the source. A shadow moved again. This time, it wasn't just my imagination. "Emily?" I called out, my voice barely a whisper, but it held hope. Maybe I wasn't alone in this. I shuffled down the hallway, my shoes squeaking on the linoleum. The shadows darted just out of reach, taunting me. I felt a chill creep down my spine. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice trembling. Silence followed, and for a moment I questioned my sanity. Then, as if answering my unvoiced doubt, I heard a soft cry. It seemed to drift through the air, a sound both anguished and familiar. I froze. It was a child's voice, fragile and fragile. It echoed down the corridor, leading me further into the hospital's depths. "Emily?" I whispered again, my breath catching in my throat. Each step felt like a leap deeper into a nightmare, but I had to follow it. Hadn't she been one of the lost children? As I rounded the corner, I noticed a window at the end of the hall, spilling pale light into the dark. The room ahead was designated as one of the quieter wards. I had a gut feeling this was where the encounters unfolded. The door was slightly ajar, creaking ominously as I pushed it open. The room looked perfectly normal. Hospital beds lined the walls, medical equipment silently waiting. Yet the atmosphere felt wrong. A tense heaviness blanketed everything. I stepped further inside, catching my reflection in the glass of a cabinet. But then, out of the corner of my eye, I spotted movement on one of the beds. My breath hitched. A figure, small and delicate, lay under the sheets. I knew I should feel dread, a sense to turn back, but there was something almost calming about it. "Emily?" I breathed, knowing full well that it could be any child. The figure stirred, a soft whimper escaping. My heart twisted. I took a tentative step closer. I wanted to reach out, to help. But the moment I did, the room seemed to shatter. The lights above us flickered violently. I shielded my eyes from the blinding light. "Help us!" came the voice again, this time emanating from all around, shaking the very foundations of the room. I stumbled back, my heart racing faster than before. I looked around, panic setting in. Suddenly, I noticed a shadow moving behind the curtain of the adjacent bed. No, not just moving, it was clawing, desperately trying to escape. "Help!" the voice rang out once more. I froze, torn between fleeing and staying. The realization crashed over me like a wave. Whatever this was, it wasn't just about Emily anymore. Someone else needed help too. I wasn't sure what came next, but I felt the weight of the unseen presence all around me, pushing me forward, urging me to uncover the truth. And I was starting to fear that what I found could change everything. Panic surged through me as I stood frozen at the threshold. The curtain flapped, revealing just enough of the figure behind it to see a small hand reaching out. "Please," it whimpered, the plea laced with desperation. My feet felt glued to the floor, fear weighing me down. "Who are you?" I whispered, hoping for clarity. The words barely escaped my lips, but the child seemed to hear them. "Help me," it breathed again, the voice softer now, tinged with hopelessness. I took a small step closer, my heart racing. The harsh fluorescent lights above flickered uncertainly, bathing the room in an eerie glow. Shadows danced across the walls, twisting and writhing. I drew in a deep breath. I couldn't walk away. Whatever was behind that curtain, whatever pain was entangled with that plea, was calling to me. I reached out, pushing aside the curtain with trembling fingers. What I saw there made my stomach drop. A little girl, pale, with tangled hair, lay there, her eyes wide with fear. "Please," she whimpered again, "she won't let me go." Confusion tangled with dread in my chest. "Who won't let you go?" I asked, struggling to keep my voice steady. But she just shook her head. "You have to help us. You have to see." At that moment, the lights went out again, plunging us into darkness. My heart raced. "Stay calm," I whispered to myself, though I struggled to believe it. I fumbled, trying to find my way back to the door. I could hear the whispers again, swelling into a cacophony. "Help us! Let us out!" The shadows pressed against me, invading my mind. I felt lost, cornered by the unseen. With a sudden urgency, I pushed open the door, but the hallway outside seemed to twist and expand, fleeing my grasp. I was trapped in this surreal maze of sound and shadow. Then everything shifted. A spark of light ignited the air, illuminating the room for a split second. There, on the floor, lay a small object, glimmering. It was a bracelet, child-sized, etched with names I couldn't make out. My breath caught. It was a clue, a connection to whatever had happened here. I reached down, but as my fingers grazed the jewelry, the cries intensified. "Don't touch it!" the little girl shouted, panic lacing her voice. But I was already swallowing my fear, feeling a force pull me closer. I had to understand. I had to find out what had happened to her, to Emily, to the others. Suddenly, the walls trembled, and a loud crash reverberated in the distance. Something was moving in the dark, something I couldn't see, but could certainly feel. I turned back toward the girl, but she was gone. "Wait," I called, but it was no use. The air grew thick with dread, and I was left standing alone, the bracelet cool against my palm, my heart pounding. Then I heard it, the unmistakable sound of footsteps echoing down the hallway, heavy and deliberate. Someone was coming for me, and I wasn't sure whether to run or stay. The choice felt as heavy as the darkness surrounding me. The footsteps grew louder, a slow, methodical rhythm that sent chills racing down my spine. Each step echoed in my ears, taunting me with a promise of discovery or disaster. I glanced down at the bracelet. It felt like a lifeline, yet it was also a shackle, binding me to this cursed place. I hesitated, trying to weigh my options. Part of me screamed to run, to escape this nightmare. But I couldn't shake the little girl's plea. "Help us." What if she was counting on me? If I left now, would I ever find out what happened here? I slipped the bracelet into my pocket, my pulse quickening. I had to find out what was really going on. With a deep breath, I stepped into the hallway, bracing myself against the darkness. The footsteps stopped. Silence fell like a heavy blanket. I strained my ears, trying to catch a hint of movement, but there was nothing. The hall stretched out before me like an endless corridor of uncertainty. Shadows twisted in the corners, flickering as the lights flickered back to life. I began to creep forward, every nerve in my body on high alert. The corridor branched to my left, led to what appeared to be a nurse's station. To my right, the faint sounds of equipment rattled in what I guessed was the break room. I chose the break room. It seemed quieter. As I approached, the air felt charged, like the calm before a storm. I nudged the door open, the metal handle cold against my palm. The room was empty, save for a small table and a handful of chairs. A flickering fluorescent bulb buzzed overhead, casting a harsh, unnatural light. That's when I saw it, a crumpled piece of paper on the table. I stepped closer, my heart racing at the thought that it might hold some clue. As I unfolded it, words jumped out at me, scrawled in frantic handwriting. "They're watching. Don't trust anyone. Help us." A chill shot through. It felt like a desperate warning. My hands trembled as I reread the words, feeling the weight of someone's fear behind them. Who had written this? The urgency in the message gnawed at my gut. Suddenly, a soft sound interrupted my thoughts, drawing my attention back to the hallway. It was a whisper, barely audible but insistent. "Help us." I felt my blood run cold. It was the little girl's voice, but it sounded different now, more distant and echoing like a ghostly faint call. "Where are you?" I called out, mind racing with dread and confusion. The sound didn't come again, but the air thickened. I could feel eyes upon me, lurking just beyond the shadows. A door slammed somewhere else in the building, followed by a low murmur of voices. I lurched back, panic flooding my chest. All my instincts screamed for me to leave, but I couldn't let fear snuff out my resolve. Not yet. Not until I understood more about what was happening. Then I heard it again. The footsteps. They were back, closer this time, coming down the hall toward me. In that moment, I knew I had to make a choice. Would I confront whatever was out there, or would I try to find a place to hide? I took a deep breath, about to make my move. But just as I stepped back toward the door, the lights flickered once more and went out entirely, plunging me into darkness again. I stood frozen, engulfed in the suffocating darkness. Panic seized me, squeezing my chest. I couldn't see an inch in front of my face. The remnants of light faded, leaving only the thundering of my pulse echoing in my ears. I fought the urge to scream. Then I heard it, the soft shuffle of feet, muted but distinct. The footsteps were closer now, reverberating down the corridor like a slow drumbeat. I had to do something. I couldn't just stand here and wait for whatever was approaching. I gripped the cool edge of the table, testing my surroundings. The flickering bulb overhead died completely, but I could still feel the presence. Someone, just outside the room. My breath quickened with each passing second. "Hello?" I whispered, trying to keep my voice steady. A reply came, not from my voice, but rather from a point further down the hallway. It was a soft sobbing, punctuated by gasps. It sounded like a child. The little girl? I felt a pull in that direction, stronger than fear. Taking one careful step, then another, I felt my way to the door. The faint sobbing continued, promising an answer that I desperately needed. Cautiously, I opened the door, wincing at the creak of the hinges. I stepped into the hallway, squinting into the blackness.
The sobbing stopped abruptly, replaced by a silence that felt oppressive. "Where are you?" I called out again, my voice trembling. I felt absurd standing in the void, waiting for a reply. But something told
me she wasn't gone. Just as I prepared to move forward, a sudden shatter broke the quiet. Glass crunched loudly against the floor somewhere behind me, and instinct kicked in. I turned, heart racing, only to see the outline of a figure illuminated briefly by a flash of emergency lights. A man, tall, dark, and shadowy, was standing at the other end of the break room. "Who are you?" I demanded, though my voice cracked at the end. Instead of an answer, he lunged toward me, arms outstretched. Fear surged through my veins like ice water. I bolted down the hallway, my feet pounding against the cold tile. I could hear him behind me, calling out my name, but that only urged me to run faster. My heart raced even harder as I spotted a door at the end of the corridor. It looked like a stairwell, my only chance of escape. I grasped the handle and yanked it open, slamming it shut behind me just as I reached the first step. Breathing hard, I leaned against the door, listening. I didn't hear anything on the other side. But something else in my gut told me I hadn't escaped, not yet. I took a moment to steady my breathing, grounded by the silence of the stairwell. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text? A lifeline? I fished it out with trembling hands and found a message waiting for me. It read, "They know you're here. You need to leave now." Questions spiraled in my mind. Who sent this? How? What did they know? I hadn't felt this alone and helpless in my life. But that didn't stop me from pushing ahead. I turned my back to the door and descended the stairs, every creak echoing ominously in the void. There was no turning back now. I was in too deep, and whatever this place held, I was determined to uncover it. As I descended the stairs, each step felt heavier than the last. The air grew thicker, tinged with a stale scent that pulled at my stomach. I forced my mind to focus. I needed to figure out my next move, but nothing made sense. Who could warn me, and why? I reached the bottom of the stairwell, and a dim light flickered to life. It illuminated a narrow hallway, walls painted a dull gray, lined with doors that looked as if they hadn't been opened in years. A sense of dread washed over me. What lay behind those doors? I hesitated at the first door, instinct urging me to investigate. I gripped the handle and turned it slowly, heart pounding. The door creaked open to reveal a small room filled with dusty medical equipment, a stark reminder of what this place once was. Old bed frames stood against the walls, yellowed sheets still draped over them like forgotten memories. A soft rustling caught my attention from the corner of the room. I squinted and saw a figure, a girl no older than 6. Her eyes wide and filled with fear. My breath caught in my throat. "Are you okay?" I asked, my voice softer now. She shook her head slowly, inching backward as though I were a ghost. "He's coming," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "You shouldn't be here." Panic surged through me again. "Who's coming?" I asked urgently, hoping to clarify her meaning. Suddenly, a loud bang echoed from the hallway, making both of us jump. The girl pressed herself against the far wall, trembling. I backed away, but my feet slipped against the dusty floors. I had to get out. In that moment, I remembered the text on my phone, "Leave now." The warning seemed more pertinent than ever. I darted out of the room, back into the hallway, and saw a flicker of shadow at the far end. A silhouette moved quickly, the same dark figure I had seen before. My heart raced, every instinct screaming for me to run. I couldn't wait to learn who or what he was. I pressed my back against the wall, hoping to remain unseen as he approached. Just then, I noticed something tucked under the doorframe adjacent to mine, a small flash drive. Instinct told me to grab it. I lunged toward the door, and as I bent down to pick it up, I heard a guttural voice echo through the hallway, sending shivers down my spine. "Where are you?" The man from before. My throat tightened as I felt the weight of fear again. I pocketed the drive and shot back down the hallway, looking for an exit. Every door felt like a gamble, and the only light left sparked ominously from the direction of that voice. Then, as I rounded a corner, I nearly collided with another man, a different figure entirely, but one that looked equally dangerous. He wore a surgical mask and appeared just as lost as I felt, but his eyes held a glimmer of recognition when he saw me. "Come with me, we don't have much time." Before I could respond, he grabbed my wrist and pulled me into a side room, shoving the door closed just as footsteps echoed behind us. "Who are you?" I gasped, trying to catch my breath. He exhaled sharply, glancing nervously at the door. "I can explain everything, but first we have to get out of here." That's when I felt it, a vibration in my pocket, the flash drive pressing against my leg. Maybe that was the answer hidden in this madness. "What do you know about the drive?" I asked, my pulse racing again, not knowing if it was fear or hope I felt. He stared at me, and everything changed in that moment. The weight of history and desperation hung in the air. This was far from over. My breath came in shallow gasps as I pressed my back against the door. The man, still gripping my wrist, glanced at me, his face partially obscured by the mask. "The drive."
"It's important," lacing his voice. "It's important." "What's on it?" I asked, feeling the weight of the flash drive. He hesitated, eyes darting to the door, before answering. "Evidence. They did terrible things here. It was supposed to be shut down, but someone—" A loud crash shattered the tension. The doorknob rattled violently. I jumped, fear clawing at my throat. "Who is it?" I whispered, panic rising. "Not now," he barked, before pressing himself against the wall beside the door. I mirrored his actions, both of us holding our breath as we waited. The footsteps grew louder, closer. I could hear a low voice, murmuring. My heart hammered in my chest. The figure outside was growing impatient. Suddenly, the man turned to me with a fierce expression. "If we don't get out of here, we'll be trapped. When I say go, we run." "Run where?" I whispered, scanning the room for a possible escape route. The only other door was locked tight, the window barred with rusted metal. "Back to the hallway. There's a service exit down the way," he replied quickly, sounding more confident than I felt. "Okay," I said, determination beginning to rise in the pit of my stomach. The door shook again, harder this time. The figure was still out there, and I could almost feel the frustration emanating through the wood. "Go!" he shouted. Without thinking, I bolted for the door. The man followed closely behind, kicking it open with a force that startled me. We burst out into the hallway, our footsteps echoing against the cold, unforgiving floors. I had no idea where we were headed, but the man was already leading the charge, glancing behind us with each step as if he expected someone to jump out at any moment. "Turn left," he called, veering suddenly. I followed, nearly slipping as I stumbled around the corner. The lights flickered overhead, casting eerie shadows that danced unnaturally along the walls. I glanced back. The hallway stretched endlessly behind us, but the silhouette was still present, looming in the darkness. I felt a chill grip my spine. "Faster," he panted, his mask shifting slightly as he urged me on. The corridor felt like a maze, each twist and turn taunting our agility. Just as we reached the end of the hallway, I saw it, an old fire exit sign, glowing dimly. Hope surged within me. But as we approached, something caught my eye. Another figure loomed, watching us intently from the shadows. I froze, staring back, paralyzed by fear. "Don't stop," my companion shouted, snapping me from the trance. We pushed through the door just as it swung open, revealing a stairwell that spiraled upward into darkness. I hesitated at the bottom for just a moment, glancing back.
The figure, the one who had warned me, was gone. I can't leave," I stammered. "We have to. It's not safe here," he urged. Then a loud bang echoed through the hall behind us, a warning of what
Was still pursuing. Without another thought, I climbed the stairs, adrenaline propelling me forward, heart racing. Little did I know, this was only the beginning. As we reached the second floor, everything changed. I stopped, eyes widening in horror. That's when I saw it, a door marked with an ominous red label, restricted access. What lay behind that door could change everything. I stood frozen, the door before me radiating an unsettling energy. "We shouldn't be here," I whispered, my voice shaking. The masked man glanced at me, urgency written all over his features. "We don't have time to question anything. We need to keep moving." "But what about that door?" I insisted, my mind racing with possibilities. "What if something important is behind it?" "It's not important right now." His hand tightened around my wrist, pulling me toward the shadowy exit at the end of the hallway. "We have to find out if anyone's out there." The echo of footsteps in the stairwell sent a shiver down my spine. Whoever had been following us wouldn't give up easily. I took a deep breath. The flash drive felt like an anchor in my pocket, reminding me that I was part of something bigger, something dangerous. "But what if we don't come back?" I asked, casting a final glance at the restricted access door. It felt like a secret waiting to spill out, a secret that could explain everything. "Then we'll leave it behind," he said sharply. "Trust me, you don't want to know." Reluctantly, I nodded, allowing him to lead me away from the door. The oppressive feeling of being watched sent adrenaline coursing through me. We sprinted past the exit, my heart pounding louder with each step. We reached a T intersection in the hallway, and the choice before us felt monumental. "Left or right?" he asked, glancing back the way we'd come. I hesitated. Left led to the main patient wards, a place of familiarity, but also potential danger. Right appeared darker, more foreboding. I opened my mouth to suggest a choice, but then I heard it. A faint sound, like muffled voices carried by the wind. It was coming from the left. "I think," I began, but he was already heading right. "Not that way. We can't risk drawing attention." So we turned right. The air grew colder as we moved deeper into the building. My senses were on high alert, adrenaline sharpened every noise. I could hear the heartbeat in my ears, drowning out everything else. Then, just ahead, a series of strange growls echoed through the hallway, followed by a crash. My heart raced again. What was that? He paused, and I felt the tension in his stance. Someone else is here. He peered around the corner cautiously, then motioned for me to stay put. "No, you can't leave me!" I grabbed his arm in desperation. "What if it's one of them?" "Then we can't be here," he snapped, clearly weighing the risk of
"Staying. Stay close. I'll be quick." The muffled voices grew louder, distorted, like a conversation from a nightmare. I felt my knees weaken as I waited, displaying all my fears. My eyes darted around the dimly lit space, searching for anything that might surface from the shadows. Suddenly, he turned with wide eyes, breathing heavily. "We have to—" Before he could finish, a loud noise erupted behind us, and I whipped around just in time to see the restricted access door swing open. A blue light flickered briefly from the cracks, illuminating a hulking figure stepping into the hallway. "No!" I gasped. It couldn't be happening. I felt the weight of dread settle over me. We had just made the worst decision. "There's no way out!" the man shouted, panic breaking through. I could only stare as the looming figure took a step forward, and the conversation started to take shape in my mind, clear as day. I had to get us out of here. I barely had time to think before I turned and bolted down the hallway, dragging the masked man with me. My heart pounded in my ears, drowning out the chaos behind us. He followed closely, his breath heavy, but urgency propelled us forward.
We reached a junction where the hallway branched again, and I wasted no time. I veered left, instinct guiding me as I pushed through ragged breaths. "We need to find a way out," I gasped, glancing back to see if the hulking figure had followed. The hallway was empty, but I could almost sense its presence, lingering, watching from the shadows. "You're right," he said, eyes darting in every direction. "There has to be a fire escape or something." Just as he spoke, another crash echoed behind us, louder this time. Whatever that figure was, it was no longer just a shadow. Panic surged within me as I pulled him further down the hallway. "Go," I urged, desperate to escape. We sprinted until we reached a set of large double doors at the end of the corridor. A flickering exit sign loomed above, casting a flickering pool of red light. "This has to be it," I shouted, and he nodded, ready to make a break for it. With a firm push, we threw the door open and rushed through, tumbling into an empty stairwell. I could feel the weight of the world pressing down on me, a stifling mix of fear and determination. The emergency exit was almost in reach. "Up!" he shouted, spotting a stairway leading to the roof. "If we can make it there, we might find a way out." We ascended quickly, 2 steps at a time, yet it felt like time was slipping through my fingers. Every creak of the stairs sounded louder in the tense silence. Finally, we burst through the door onto the rooftop. The night sky stretched above us, a tapestry of stars twinkling dimly. "There has to be a ladder or something we can use," I said, scanning the rooftop for an escape. "There!" he yelled, spotting a fire escape that led down the side of the building. He sprinted toward it, and I followed, adrenaline coursing through my veins. But before we reached it, the air grew thick around us, a chill enveloping us like a blanket. Suddenly, from behind us, a harsh growl shattered the stillness of the night. I froze for just a moment, fear gripping my chest once more. The figure, the same towering shape, emerged from the rooftop door. I turned back to see that it had come after us. "Go!" he shouted again, startling me into motion once more. I stumbled forward, grabbing the ladder just as a shadow loomed over me. My heart thudded in my chest, propelling my body down the rungs. I could hear my companion scrambling after me, but I didn't dare look back. Halfway down, bright lights flooded the alley beneath us, blinding me momentarily. Panic soared within me. Had they come to rescue us, or was this a trap? But there was no time to question. I had to keep going. Finally, we reached the ground, panting heavily. The alley stretched in either direction, dark and welcoming yet menacing, but the exit was ahead. The masked man glanced at me, his eyes fierce. "This way." He grabbed my arm and pulled me left, leading to a dimly lit opening in the brick wall. We dashed through the opening, crashing into the street just as sirens blared in the distance. I hesitated, feeling a heaviness settle in my gut. "What now?" I turned to him, breathless and shaking. "We need to get to safety," he said quickly, glancing back at the hospital. The figure stood silhouetted in the doorway, a dark outline against the flickering lights. "Where are we even going?" I cried, shivering as I froze in my tracks, my mind racing. The man was about to respond when the scream of sirens cut through the air, pulling my attention back to the street. "I don't know," he admitted, an edge of desperation creeping into his voice, "but we need to keep moving." So we ran, my feet pounding on the pavement as raw fear pushed me forward. I didn't look back at the hospital, at the figure watching us from the shadows, but I could feel its gaze haunting me. A lingering question remained unaddressed. Had we truly escaped, or had we just exchanged one nightmare for another? Days later, I sat in my apartment, the flash drive resting heavily on my desk, a constant reminder of the horrors still tangled in the fabric of that place. Though the sirens had faded, I still heard whispers calling my name in the quiet moments. Were they echoes of that cursed hospital? Unanswered pleas woven into my existence? I never went back to the hospital, but sometimes, when I least expected it, I'd find myself staring at the news or scrolling through old hospital records online.
Haunted. still searching for answers that might never come. But the truth was, deep down, I now understood. Whatever darkness lurked in that place would never fully let go.